Welcome to Joyfully Unstoppable, the podcast for women who are ready to succeed without the stress. Whether you are leading a team, a classroom, a boardroom, or your own big, beautiful life, I am so glad you found us. I'm your host, Becky Hamm, executive coach, speaker, and founder of Women Lead Well. Join me each week for straight talk, practical tips, and a dash of encouragement. Hello, friend. I hope you are having a great day. Today, I am so excited to welcome Crystal Dudek on the show. Crystal is a strategic human resources professional with over 20 years of experience helping organizations strengthen their leadership, employee engagement, performance, and workplace culture. Her background spans healthcare, logistics, retail, and transportation, where she's partnered with leaders to improve retention, develop talent, navigate employee relations matters, and support organizational change. Crystal is known for her collaborative leadership style, strong coaching approach, and ability to translate workforce insights into practical solutions that support both people and business goals. Crystal, welcome to the Joyfully Unstoppable podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, and as we get started, I just want to share with our listeners how we connected through LinkedIn. I periodically will reach out to women who follow the Women Lead Well page on LinkedIn to ask about what challenges they're facing or leadership questions that they have that I might use to create podcast episodes. I do this podcast to actually be helpful and meet the needs of the women who listen. And so reaching out through LinkedIn is just a great way for me to get feedback. And when I reached out to you, you had the most thoughtful response. You didn't focus on a challenge that you were facing personally. You focused on employees and their experience of being led and how that impacts retention and employee growth. And so I knew immediately that I wanted you on the podcast because one, that's a really important topic in and of itself. But two, I want to give voice. I want to promote anyone who puts the needs of the people they lead first. And so thank you for the heart that you bring to leadership. And I am just so excited, so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Crystal, you are an HR professional. I am not. So we are going to lean heavily on your expertise today. But first, to start, what brought you into the HR space? What do you find most rewarding about it?
I think for me, it's just within HR is loving people, and you want people just to be their best, to utilize all their skills and resources. You want them to have the best experience within their jobs and within their career, and you just want to make sure that people are valued, that they're rewarded, and that they can grow.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Particularly people who are new to leadership roles, to be able to focus both on their responsibilities, because a lot of times, like gone are the days when a manager just managed. Now, oftentimes, managers, directors, even VPs, more senior leaders, they have their own portfolio that they're responsible for, and then they also lead people. And so what can you share with women who are leading teams who are struggling with that balance of the own work that they have to produce and then also cultivating, enriching their team?
I think some of the ways to really be balanced is to make sure that you take time out for your care team members and be intentional about the time that you have with them. So that means, scheduling something on the calendar, or maybe you're like going out maybe for coffee, or maybe just kind of talking and walking, but just be intentional about the time that you have with your team and, follow up with them, because your care team members, they're going to want to be heard. They're going to want to be seen. And then also as leaders, you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Making sure that you're taking that time for good self-care, making sure that you have those moments of downtime where you are able to step away from the work and, just be yourself. Having that time for you and remembering you and why you are a leader and give yourselves grace. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I don't know that is a common trait among leaders or women. I would agree wholeheartedly, but I'm only laughing because, yes, that is a growth edge, I think, for a lot of women in leadership roles is grace and releasing
Yes.
that perfectionism.
That's right.
So, Crystal, there is so much there to unpack. There is the being intentional about the time that you have with your team members. There is the self-care, and there's grace. Let's unpack those.
Okay.
To be intentional with team members, when I was a VP, I would have one-on-ones with my direct reports every week because that was just part of our cadence, and it let me on a weekly touch point know what was top of mind for them and if there were any roadblocks that I needed to unblock for them. They were working at their level, but if I needed to run interference or intervene at my level, it helped if I knew that more quickly, if I didn't have to wait every other week or once a month. But what should leaders be doing in those one-to-ones to support their team members' work so the team member can make forward progress, get the information that they need to know at their level so they can be effective as leaders, but then also in a professional way, cultivate relationship with their team members so they can invest in their professional growth or they can help support the team member in a more holistic way? I know there was a lot in that question.
Yeah, there is a lot, and that's great. I think just really kind of being prepared with your care team member and making sure that you have some questions, they open-ended questions that you can ask of them. Like you said, what are some things that are working well? What are some challenges that you have or some roadblocks that I might be able to assist you with? But then the other thing too is getting to know the people that work for you, understanding like them on another level. Like, say, for example, getting to know them about maybe like their family or, maybe like their favorite sport or, some of the things that they do on their weekends, some of the events and things that they like to do. I think that helps to really build really good, strong relationships. And some of the other things that leaders can do is to have conversations with the people that report to them about their own professional growth and development. So many times here with care team members is, they want growth and development. Well, have those conversations with your employees. Where do you see yourself? Maybe in the next year or 2 years or 3 to 5 years. Where do you want to be? Is this the role that you want to be in? Or are there other things that you're interested in? Maybe maybe there's like a special project that you can get your employee engaged in. So I think those are the types of things that, we always want to make sure that we're keeping employees engaged.
Yes.
It's so important.
Yes.
It's so important.
Well, so let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
My audience are women, right? There might be a man or two who listens, but overwhelmingly women listen to this podcast. And a challenge that I have heard from several of the women that I coach, and I'll admit I felt this a little bit myself when I was in a position of significant responsibility with a large number of both direct reports and a large team, is how do I cultivate that relationship and express sincere interest in my team without it being too personal? Because it is one thing for a male leader to ask personal questions, counterparts of their. It is different when it's the woman expressing interest, or can be perceived as different. Let me say it that way. It can be perceived as different when it's the woman in a position of authority asking personal questions of a junior male colleague.
Yes.
How do we navigate that double standard in a way that is professional and effective?
Yes, you have to be very careful. And, some of the things that as leaders might say, oh, how was your weekend? And then, let the employee kind of open up and kind of like share with you what they're comfortable sharing. Or you might even say some things like, oh, if they ask you like, maybe like what you did over a weekend, like maybe say, oh, yeah, like, I went to the beach or I went to a concert or, I like to do gardening and different things like that. Another one of the things that I've seen, like even like my own leaders have done is we have something where we kind of have like a leader will ask like different questions. So it's kind of like all about you kind of a thing. And the leader will have like a something that they would give to all their employees. So it's just like, what are some of your favorite things? Your favorite food or snacks, or what types of hobbies do you have? Do you have pets? Do you have kids? Different things like that. So, there's different ways in which you can um share information, but be open and be knowledgeable and be aware of how their care team member is sharing things with you. That would kind of like give you some pointers as to, okay, if they're really open to share things, then be open. If you kind of see that they're kind of reserved, and just kind of like, just kind of know when to kind of take things down, just like a no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really valuable, those social cues that you're getting from your team.
Yes.
And I appreciate that example you shared of a leader who sent everyone the same set of questions. So then there's no wondering about whether somebody is being called out or treated as special, or everyone is being asked the same thing. And presumably those questions are questions that can then inform the leader's conversations that they will have. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting suggestion. So when you think about leadership with your HR hat on, what is leadership for you?
Leadership for me is having trust. It's really about having set goals, expectations, really setting the tone to bring out the best in others. Integrity, very good leadership skills. And then some of the other things, being a leader is being a very good listener.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important. And then two, you want to make sure that people that work for you, that they feel supported and that people are held accountable.
Yeah.
And you also hold yourself accountable as well.
So yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because there can be this tension between I want my team to feel supported and I want them to know that I care about them. And yet we still have outcomes that we need to meet, or a mission that we need to meet. And that accountability can be really difficult. One, because there are so many legal constraints around how in a business setting or a professional setting, we hold people accountable, things you say, things you shouldn't say, right? What guidance would you have for leaders who want to hold their team to a high standard, believe in their team's ability to meet that standard, yet there are individuals who aren't meeting that standard?
I think it's important to set expectations and make sure that people understand what is expected of them. And so people really need to know and understand their roles and, what they need to contribute. And the other thing is that I think is really important too, is if a leader sees that their employee is struggling, then it's time to have that conversation early and to say, this is what I've observed. Help me to understand, what you might have done, or why you might have interacted in this way, or how you performed, or different things like that. And then understanding from the employee's point of view. And then as a leader, you can think back to say, okay, well, perhaps another way in which you could have gone about such and such is X, Y, and Z. So I think it's important when we realize that things are happening, that an employee is not performing as they should, then it's very important to address those concerns early, get the employee's side, but then two, help them to understand and give them tools and resources and examples of what you expect and, how to appropriately do things in the future. So it's that guidance, it's the force.
I think that's great insight.
Okay.
So let's say you have an individual who is struggling and you do intervene early and you have the conversation. And what I was always taught in terms of giving that kind of feedback is that there's no emotion. It is simply, this is what needed to happen. This is what did happen. This is the impact, right? And you get their input into that, because maybe there was a legitimate reason why things played out the way they did. That's always a possibility. Might not be the employee's failure of any sort. But you have that conversation and then you collectively come up with the next steps.
Right.
So when it then comes time or annual appraisals or a mid-year review. Let's say you've got an employee who you went through that period with and they have, I'm going to say rehabilitated. I don't think it's the right word, but they are now meeting standard. Do we wipe the slate clean because they overcame the hiccup and they've grown, and so their annual performance will reflect the performance at the end of the reporting period? What's your recommendation for how to move through that period and then down the road with that individual employee?
I think one of the things that's very important is if you see any type of improvement, growth, it's important to acknowledge that with the care team member quickly, because then that's going to reinforce that positive behavior. And then even within their evaluation, you might even say, well, talk about like a specific kind of situation that occurred. And then too, you can say, but you were able to improve upon that. And it showed. And you have to let your employees know when they do well, because then that's going to encourage them to continue with that type of behavior and to continue to improve, because then they're going to feel it. They're like, oh yeah, I grew, I took care of this, I improved. And those are the types of things that's going to make an employee feel valued. You feel that, you know what, hey, I've got this.
Crystal, I really appreciate the theme that I'm seeing from how you're talking about this. Early action as soon as you notice something is off. Early action to praise the improvement. That I wonder how many of us as leaders, because there's so much on our plate, and this is just the time we're living in, everybody,
Right.
not just leaders, everybody has more work than time or kind of mental capacity.
Yeah.
And so it is so common. I've seen it time and time again where people recognize they've got an employee or a team member who if for whatever reason is struggling, and they just don't have the bandwidth to deal with it. And so it festers, it lingers, other team members see that individual isn't working, pulling the same weight or working to the same standard. And so then when they deal with it, it's a bigger thing. And because it got to be a bigger thing, then they are weary or wary of acknowledging improvement because they don't trust it, because at this point they've made a judgment about that person's ability, not just that person's performance. And so I really appreciate your perspective that no, you need to find the bandwidth to deal with this as soon as you spot it, because that keeps it small and it's easier to handle. And then you need to reinforce the success when you see it, because you feed what you want more of, right? And what you want more of is the strong performance. So you reward it, or you acknowledge it, you publicly praise it, you do all those things, and you don't treat that person like there's something wrong with them, which happens I've seen it so many times. This reluctance to let people actually perform well.
Yes, so true.
Okay, thank you. That I think is so, I know there's going to be a woman listening to this who's like, oh my goodness, this is what I'm doing, right? There is an aha moment happening when they hear this podcast. So thank you for walking us through how to approach an employee who is underperforming. Let's talk more broadly for a minute about a leader's responsibility to all of their team members and their team members' professional development. What should a leader be doing with the limited time and probably limited resources that they have at their discretion to put toward professional development? What are your recommendations for how leaders can make the most of that time and the resources that they have to develop the members of their team?
I think what leaders should do is to perhaps maybe kind of take some time out to kind of prepare a conversation with their employee. So, kind of like having like a different, like set of like questions that they're going to ask them, kind of like let the employee know, you know what, let's have like a growth and development kind of conversation. Let the employee just kind of like share, with their leader, like some of what their strengths are, maybe like what some of their goals are, kind of looking at like past positions, maybe different type of certifications or educational background that they have to say, where do you see yourself, what do you want to do? Is this what you truly want to do? Or are there other things that you're interested in? And if so, what are those things? A lot of organizations have like different types of programs and sessions for like leadership development. Lots of companies have that. My organization has that. And so, I think as far as, like really development, an employee needs to kind of take a look at themselves to say, what else is out there? And then the other thing is even partnering with like a recruiter to say, hey, I'm interested in such and such. What are some opportunities that we have within our system? Um, some other things employees might want to consider are career ladders and career. A leader can work with their employee with regard to a career path, whether that's an upward path or sometimes that path is just kind of, just like this.
Yeah.
So there's many different ways, like when you kind of think about like growth and development, there's so many different things to do. And, there's a lot of different like forms and, different things that people can kind of fill out to say, well, hey, what are you interested in? What are your strengths? Where do you see yourselves? There's a lot of different like tools and resources that are out there, but I think it's really important for leaders to have those conversations with their employees. Because I think a lot of times employees want those conversations. They want something, different than like the normal one-on-one, meetings that they have. They want those growth and development conversations.
And how often would you recommend having those conversations? Is this once a quarter or twice a year? What's the cadence for that?
Maybe say about twice a year. You really want to kind of get, keep that momentum going because sometimes you talk about it once and then, talk about it again until next year. So I think maybe like a couple of times a year, I think would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Great. Do you know of any templates that are out there that leaders could use to structure those conversations? Is there anything off the shelf that you would recommend?
Oh, I'm just trying to think. A person can Google it. They can do a Google search. There's so many incredible things out there, but I guarantee you, if someone does like a Google search of like, different templates and different, resources and different things like that for career development and career talks and paths and mapping, find a lot of stuff out there.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's take even one more step back. And you've been in HR for 20 years. You've seen a lot of really good leaders, and I hope you haven't seen that many really bad leaders. But I bet you've seen at least one. What indicators tell you that someone is a good boss?
How you treat people, treating people with respect, integrity, kindness, being honest with people, being consistent, someone who communicates clearly, someone who's consistent, and also someone who is transparent and are not afraid to let you know that, hey, you know what? I messed up. I'm not perfect either. And that they're willing to take a look and a step back just to let their people know, hey, we're in this together. I'm here to support you. It's all about how you make people feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You didn't mention subject matter expertise.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, your leader is the subject expert. But, leaders have very strong employees that work with them too. And they've got some incredible people that can actually help to support them as well. Because employees have some incredible ideas that really helps their leaders so that their leaders are successful as well. But but yes, your leader is a subject matter expert. But I tell you, the support that you get and that you feedback that your team brings, I mean, there's some really incredible employees out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so for a bad leader, is it just the opposite? What makes a bad leader is the opposite of all the things that make a good leader? How do we know what we want to avoid?
When I think of a bad leader, to me, one of the things that comes up is a micromanager. That is absolutely just a bad leader. Someone that is a poor communicator. They lack accountability. They're not consistent. They don't listen. They don't take time with their people. They create confusion.
Mhm.
They're inconsistent. That to me, that's a bad leader.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
right. Because all of those things make the employee experience more difficult, right? That introduces friction to a team
Oh
member
gosh.
being able to do their job.
Hmm.
Yes. Okay. I hear
Yes.
you. So last, like, main question that I've got for you, what are some things that our listeners can do to boost retention on their teams? This has been such a challenge. The job market has been so wild for a couple of years now, and retention is really important.
It is.
What can listeners do to retain the talent that they already have?
I think it really starts with just like the day-to-day experience.
Mhm.
We're all in this together. You want to make sure that you're having conversations with your employee, making sure that they understand what's expected of them, setting those expectations, staying connected, making sure that your people feel valued and that they feel that the work that they do has meaning, that there's a purpose, giving people the opportunity to grow, to shine. And even when things are difficult, just always put it as we're in this together. Um, Trust, developing people, being a good listener. And then two, um, just making sure that your employees are really you want to utilize your employees' skill sets to the best of their ability.
Yes.
Because if they feel that their skills are valued and that they're being utilized well, then, those are the types of things they're going to want, people are going to want to stay. Do things that are fun, whether that's, people, maybe you guys have like lunch together or, some things that some departments, even organizations like to do is like community service work together,
Hmm.
do things, in the community, do things that kind of bring people together, just even ask the team, said, hey, what are some things that you guys like to do that, we can celebrate each other, celebrate the win.
Yeah.
Those are the types of things that people need to feel value and let them know, I appreciate you. Even with my own leader, she says to us often, I appreciate you. Be specific about the good things that they do and tell them that. Because so many times, even if it's just a quick email or just when you're checking in with someone, building those intentional relationships.
Yes. Yes, that's right. People, I think they're what I'm hearing from that are two things. One, really valuing the members on your team so then they feel that they are part of something, that they are welcome, that they belong. And that's just a fundamental human need, but they're valued for belonging. But I also hear you talking about consistency and providing that stability that so many of us crave because there's so much that's in flux right now. And a lot of industries where I tend to support women, the entire industry is in flux. A particular company or a particular division in a company, like the entire industry is changing. And so providing as much of that where you can, right, with integrity, with honesty, providing as much stability and appreciation at the same time, you're hitting two fundamental human needs with that. And it makes so much sense how that would positively impact retention. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
So tell our listeners how they can find you if they would like to connect. I have a hunch you're going to get a lot of LinkedIn requests when this episode airs.
Yes, one of the best ways to reach out to me is in LinkedIn. And my name for that with LinkedIn, it is Crystal Moore Dudek. Yes, please reach out to me in LinkedIn. I would be happy to connect with people. If you want to share some ideas, questions, anything. Yes, I'm available on LinkedIn. I look forward to connecting with other people.
Awesome. And
Absolutely.
I will include your link in the show notes. So when people come to this episode, they won't have to fat finger your name into LinkedIn. Like they can just click and it'll go to you.
How do you spell that?
Great.
Yes.
Well, Crystal, thank you so much. I have learned a ton in our conversation today. I know the women listening have as well. So I am so glad that when I DM'd you randomly, you had no idea who I was. When I sent you that random DM that you responded, I'm so grateful for your time today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And this has been great. So thank you so very much.
Great. Now, if this episode spoke to you, I would love for you to share it with a friend. We need more women leading from alignment, not adrenaline. And if you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. Remember, joyful, sustainable, and authentic leadership is possible, and you deserve to enjoy every minute of it. Until next time, I'm Becky Hamm, and this is Joyfully Unstoppable.